And, there's been a lot of speculation and chatter about the adaptation and, what's happening and why it's taken so long. And I'm just excited that they're now going to get to see what we've been working on for 5 years and the love and the care and the respect that we have for the source material and for them. Because if it were not for them, we wouldn't be here in a position to release this film. So this is a love letter to them at the end of the day. Directing is a very complicated job. You have to hold the entire vision of the movie in your head and then find ways to communicate it and get everybody on the same page. And then acting is its own animal. Acting, especially with a role like Ryle, with complex, deeply painful, disturbed man, it's very hard. And there were many times, throughout the course of the movie where it was challenging. And as a director, it's my job to navigate all the personalities and to figure out how to get us all in the same direction. And yet those challenges are also beautiful. And we work together to create this beautiful piece of art. And I'm proud of it. And I believe that the cast is proud of it, and Colleen's proud of it, and I hope at the end of the day that the fans will be proud of it.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. So I just finished up this video about Justin Baldoni and this great news in the court because they will refuse to stay the discovery for Leslie Sloan, and a great signaling case that the judge pointed them to say, I'm denying your request, look to this case for the answer. And that answer was that the person also had filed a great motion to dismiss, and he still denied it, and discovery went on. But now I have new information, and that is that Justin and Wayfair are suing Stephanie Jones. I was waiting for this to happen. I knew it. I had a feeling it was coming because it felt like Stephanie Jones was all over this case. Like her, whatever she was doing, the publicist of Wayfair that got this all going, that lost her ever-loving marbles. Well, it turns out he's going to file a countersuit against her. So yesterday was the day that every single person in the case had to file their responses to the various lawsuits. And yesterday he filed his response, and then he did a countersuit. And this is how he has this all laid out. So it's Wayfair Studios versus Stephanie Jones. And it is Jones Works is a well-known New York-based public relations firm founded by Stephanie Jones, who served as its CEO, long known within the public relations industry for her disarming Southern twang, brass knuckle tactics, and high turnover of clients and employees. Stephanie had a successful career in the entertainment industry. Her firm represented Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, Venus Williams, Tom Brady, and Chris Helmsworth. She's married to Jason Hodes, a partner at William Morris Endeavor, the most powerful talent agency in Hollywood. Between her perch of top Jones work and his partnership at WME, Jones and Hodes are a bona fide Hollywood power couple. In or around 2020, Wayfair engaged in Jones Works to provide strategic communication services and serve as its public relations representative. So they signed a contract with her in 2020. Now, interestingly, when they signed this contract with her, a part of this contract includes a confidentiality clause. And the clause says, throughout the client's engagement in companies hereunder, client may disclose or provide company with confidential, proprietary, and/or sensitive information about the client, its customers, or other related parties. Confidential information. Company shall use reasonable and diligent efforts to keep confidential information confidential, provided that company may disclose such information to third parties to the extent necessary to fulfill its obligation under this agreement or to its legal representatives. Company shall not use such information for any purposes beyond the performance of the company's services hereunder unless otherwise required by law or a court of competent jurisdiction. Company may, however, use client's name as part of its client list, publicly acknowledge that it's an undertaking work for the client pursuant to this agreement, without specifying the nature of the services. For the avoidance of doubt, confidential information shall not include information which is or later becomes publicly available through no wrongful act of the company, be known by company prior to the client's disclosure to the company in connection with the agreement, or independently developed by company without reliance on information disclosed by the client. Company is not liable for any third party's disclosures of clients' confidential information so long as such third party did not obtain the confidential information as a result of the company's breach or failure to uphold its obligations hereunder. Upon the expiration termination of this agreement and at the request of client, company shall return or destroy all of client's confidential information. So interestingly, they have a confidentiality clause, and the one stipulation in here is that they can hand over confidential information about someone unless otherwise required by law or court of competent jurisdiction, which I'm assuming is why they keep saying that Stephanie Jones had a subpoena. And according to their contract, if they have any disputes, they have to go to New York for litigation. This this specific lawsuit isn't like 100,000 pages and doesn't have a ton of screenshots, but thankfully we've already seen most of the screenshots for this case. But it basically gives a rundown about how, he got rights to this film, and then the book got really popular thanks to Book Talk. And then once Book Talk made this book huge, Wayfair partnered with Sony to co-finance and distribute the film. They felt a deep Wayfair and Baldoni felt a deep sense of responsibility to do justice to Hoover's work and meaningfully capture the experience of Lily Bloom. And Wayfair cast Blake Lively for the role, and trusting her with that fulfilling vision. For reasons now widely known, that turned out to be an unwise decision. Without diving into the full sequence of events, which are the subject of active litigation, Lively ended up stealing control of the movie, hijacking the premiere, and taking aim at the personal and professional reputations of Baldoni and Wayfair team in apparent attempt to drive Wayfair out of business. I mean, I told you that. That's what they were trying to do. They want her out of business. They want him out of business because they're a competing production company. That's my opinion. For present purposes, it suffices to say that Wayfair and Baldoni had significant public relations needs in the summer of 2024 before, during, and after the film premiere. I like that at least he's now acknowledging that it was a huge mistake to hire Blake. So, the next part, it was at this time that Stephanie Jones, seemingly in the midst of a downward spiral, I love the way that they put together these complaints are like reading a novel, a really juicy one, decided to stir up unnecessary drama and discord, throwing elbows for self-interested reasons, undermining and eventually terminating Jones' work point person at Wayfair, refusing to follow instructions, and generally causing more problems than she's solving. In so doing, Jones ruptured her relationships with the Wayfair team and Baldoni and ultimately rendered any continued engagement by Jones or Jones' works untenable and intolerable. That is especially so given that Wayfair and Baldoni later learned about the true magnitude of her malice. For almost 4 years, her work for Wayfair and Baldoni was managed by Jennifer Abel out of Jones Works' Los Angeles office. Over time, Abel developed a close and trusting relationship with Baldoni, Wayfair CEO Jamie Heath, and the rest of the team, particularly as their strategic communications needs became ever more complex in 2024. At that time, during Wayfair's 4-year engagement with Jones Works, it was very clear to Wayfair that Jones largely did not hide that Jones considered them to be a lower prestige client and devoted her attention to clients such as Jeff Bezos and Tom Brady. Yet by 2024 July, things were not going well for Jones. At the same time as Jones Works was bleeding clients and personnel, Jones learned that Business Insider was working on an unflattering story about her set to be published sometime in August. In addition, Jones' reputation, at least on information and belief in her mind, had been severely damaged by the Stephanie Jones Leaks website and social media accounts. Jones was desperate to keep her remaining clients. At around the same time, Abel gave notice to Jones and Jones Works that she intended to resign and later that she intended to start her own firm. Given Abel's close relationship with Wayfair and Baldoni, Jones was undoubtedly concerned that they would leave Jones Works alongside her, and she wanted to make sure that that did not happen. During this period, Wayfair were in the middle of a massive PR crisis as news stories began trickling out, speculating about possible tension between Lively and Baldoni, largely due to the cast no longer following him on social media. Just as the film was about to premiere, Jones started participating in meetings, calls, and written correspondence to reassert her authority over the account and convey her engagement to Wayfair. Wayfair and Baldoni asked Abel to recommend a crisis management specialist after consulting with Jones, who had no viable ideas. Abel recommended that Wayfair and Baldoni engage crisis expert Melissa Nathan to assist in navigating the choppy waters. Abel had confidence in Nathan as they had worked together extensively in connection with a different client, and the need for crisis PR expertise was particularly acute due to Lively's demand that Baldoni not be permitted to attend the premiere and the threat that Baldoni would be excluded from the press junket from the rest of the cast. So they were like prepping because they knew that the optics were gonna look bad, and they wanted to be prepared if stuff got out into the press. Abel learned during her initial session with Nathan, per her media contacts, a negative story was already being shopped around to multiple outlets, positioning his religion, Baldoni's religion, as a cult and accusing Baldoni of having fat shamed Lively after he asked her personal trainer in private about her weight due to his history of severe back pain. Even though Abel felt strongly that Nathan was the right choice, she knew that Jones would be unhappy with the recommendation. Jones viewed Nathan as a competitor and had a history of bad mouthing her to anyone who would listen, including Nathan's own clients. Out of sensitivity for those considerations, she advised the Wayfair team to remain open to other options and decide after meeting Nathan themselves. She feared backlash from Jones, but felt strongly that Nathan was the best option. Oh, Melissa Nathan almost got put in a fire here. It's like she should have found someone else for her, maybe. I don't know. When Jones learned that Wayfair was considering retaining Nathan, she was furious and immediately lashed out at Abel, pressuring her to disparage Nathan as a demonstration of loyalty to Jones. After initially pushing back, Abel eventually relented after Jones called her crying and screaming and engaged in some light disparaging of Nathan to placate Jones. Jones then attempted to derail the engagement, exploiting confidential client information to convince Wayfair not to move forward with Nathan. So it's pretty wild. Like, it sounds like they were already the reason why they got the crisis PR involved is because it sounds like someone on Blake's side was already shopping a negative story before the so-called smear campaign started, right? Oh, this is wild. Okay, so when Jones reinserted herself in July and August of 2024, she was transparently seeking to box out Nathan and Abel. The problem was that Jones had chosen not to be privy to the leadership's communication strategy or internal decision making, having long claimed to be too busy with high profile clients. Wayfair was fine with Jones' disengagement as Abel had been their trusted advisor, and they had no interest in being a pawn in Jones' works office politics. She was in Europe, as you know, and then Jones tries to stir up drama and undermine Abel's authority. So, leading up to the film's premiere, Lively and Baldoni's teams negotiated a truce, but they later learned that Lively's team had already broken that truce, but the Wayfair team did not know that. As far as they were concerned, it was best for Baldoni, Lively, and the film if both sides agreed to keep the peace. Though the Wayfair team had to date been acting only in defense and responding to press inquiries. On August 8th, Jones, in another desperate attempt to reinsert herself, contacted a Daily Mail reporter about a story they had published about Baldoni and Lively. She did so in direct violation of Abel's instruction per Wayfair not to talk to the press given the truce with Lively's team. Nonetheless, Jones bragged to Wayfair about trading calls with the Daily Mail in an effort to appear engaged in the account. Nathan and Abel were left to deal with the fallout. The blatant disregard for their strategy sparked a chain of unfortunate developments. Sloan and Sony learned that someone from Baldoni's team had been communicating negatively with the media. It was clearly Jones, and Wayfair's leadership was livid, as was Sony. All parties were desperate to prevent an all-out slugfest between Lively and Baldoni just as the film was about to be released to the world. With her reckless and unauthorized activities, Jones had made the scenario much more likely. In response, they instructed Jones to cease all activities on behalf of Wayfair and Baldoni for the time being, and to let Abel and another Los Angeles based Jones Work employee, Matthew Mitchell, handle the case along with Nathan. So after this, Nathan starts hearing from other journalists that Sloan was planting negative stories about Baldoni and was under the impression that Baldoni's camp had broken the truce. Anxious Sony executives began reaching out to Wayfair's seeking clarity. Yet Jones panicked about being blamed, refused to be sidelined, insisting that she needed to contact Sony and Lively's PR teams to clarify that she had not planted any negative stories about Lively. Keith told her not to do that, to which Jones responded that she could do whatever she wants to clear her name and that Wayfair cannot stop her from making calls. Desperate to salvage her reputation with Lively and Sony, Jones emailed a number of key Sony executives working on the film to declare that she was in Europe with her husband partner, Jason Hodes, and placing all the blame on her team. In her attempt to save face, she ruptured her relationship with Wayfair and Baldoni. Although Jones ultimately agreed to stand down, Wayfair and Baldoni had lost all trust in her. And after parachuting in for self interest reasons, nearly blowing up the truce with Lively's team and lashing out when she was told to stop, she became a magnet for drama. So apparently, she starts relentlessly emailing them, giving them ideas about what to do. You've seen some of this in these previous lawsuits, basically, like flood the positive stories. You need to ensure that you promote positive narratives, prepare alternate stories. She pretended like she was going to be the crisis manager. She starts forwarding emails of all these different like journalists that are contacting her for comment, and Jamie's repeatedly telling her like, stop, we're fine. We don't need your help. So a week of this goes back and forth, and they learn that on the 21st that Jones Work suddenly terminated Jennifer Abel, and they threatened her, seized her phone, and marched her out of the Los Angeles office. The office Wayfair CEO immediately reached out to Jones expressing extreme concern. Jones brushed off his alarm and noted that Wayfair had an exclusive contract with Jones Work. So she sends this like long email, which we've talked about before, but at the end of it, it says, "We have an exclusive contract with you through May of 2025. You contracted a crisis PR firm to handle all crisis related matters. If you would now like us to help with that, we absolutely can and will." But the same day that she sent that, within hours of terminating Abel and seizing her phone, she went through Abel's phone and she shared confidential information relating to Wayfair and Baldoni with Leslie Sloan, Blake's publicist. And on information and belief, Jones also shared such information with other third parties and in no event pursuant to a subpoena of any kind or lawful court order. That same day, Sloan contacted Nathan disclosing that she had seen her texts about Lively, which could only have come from Abel's phone, and was gloating that she should expect to be sued. So, first of all, did you hear that? It says on information and belief, she shared the information with other third parties and in no event pursuant to a subpoena of any kind or lawful court order. So she handed over these text messages, some of them to Leslie Sloan, the same day she got them without a court order, completely violated their confidentiality agreement. This woman, oh my God, your team is supposed to be on your side. They're not supposed to be trying to actively destroy you because you don't want to work with them anymore. And if this is how this woman does business, I would be fearful for any of her clients. She has a duty to protect information, especially when she's in an agreement with them and they're paying her $20,000 a month. So as September drew near, Wayfair and Baldoni, with the assistance of Abel and Nathan, they continued their efforts to promote the film, put out fires, and see the project through the finish line. Jones, on the other hand, was stewing in jealousy towards Abel and resentment towards Baldoni and Wayfair for their lack of confidence in her. She reached out voluntarily, they believed, to Lively's team, offering what she believed to be ammunition against Wayfair, Baldoni, Abel, and Nathan, wielding reams of Abel's private communications, which with some unscrupulous massaging and creativity could be sliced and diced and stripped of context to support a false narrative about them. I mean, what better way these people work in PR. They can do just about anything to destroy people. At the same time, an embattled Lively was licking her wounds after a well-publicized series of promotional missteps and off-putting public appearances that resulted in a cascade of negative publicity. On information and belief, Jones believed it was ultimately correct that Lively and her team would be willing participants in her scheme. In turning over the materials to Lively, Jones knew full well that the blowback would engulf not only Jennifer Abel and Nathan, but also current Jones Works clients, Wayfair and Baldoni. So she was doing this to her active clients. Oh my goodness. Jones clearly expected Wayfair to terminate the Jones Works agreement. So they're saying that she was doing this and breaching this in the hopes that they would terminate her. Notwithstanding her own despicable and serendipitous conniving, Jones cynically started taking steps transparently intended to make it harder to cut her loose. This included sending email after unwelcomed email to Heath and others long after the relationship had ruptured, to lay the groundwork to contest that she had been detached and non responsive for years. This was especially galling as Jones had been in Europe and largely incommunicado, save for her disastrous efforts at self preservation for weeks during the critical month of August when the film premiered. After Jones suddenly and unceremoniously fired Abel in the midst of their crisis, leaving Wayfair in the lurch, communications between Jones and Wayfair broke down completely. She vacillated between insisting that they only speak through lawyers and then making erratic and deranged threats to sue, demanding exorbitant payment for work not done, and insisting against evidence that she was doing an amazing job. Although they did not yet know how far she had taken things, Baldoni considered her behavior to be a material breach of the agreement and advised Jones that they were terminating the Jones work agreement at the end of August. So she's claiming that they breached the contract, but his argument is that I didn't breach the contract because that's what she's suing him for. Is like, I had an exclusive contract, and he's saying that like you stepped out of that clause, and I get to you breached our contract, so I'm done. In December of 2024, they finally learned the full extent of Jones' betrayal, and as a result of her deliberate and unlawful disclosure of private information, Lively's team exploited it to concoct a false and disturbing narrative about them. Wayfair and Baldoni have been irrevocably harmed following the coordinated drop of Lively's fantastical CRD complaint and an explosive New York Times article. Wayfair and Baldoni became objects of public scorn and derision. Baldoni has wrongfully been labeled as a sex pest. His accolades have been rescinded and his future projects thrown into doubt. The same is true of Wayfair, which has been falsely cast as an enabler of sexual misconduct and the architect of a vicious retaliation campaign against a victim of such misconduct. Indeed, its very viability as a studio has been thrown into doubt as a result of Jones' actions on behalf of Jones Works. I'm like, so their argument is that the terms of this contract state that she cannot do anything or share any information that they have, including Jennifer's communications with people on the team about Wayfair, Jennifer's communication with members of Wayfair, her contacts with Baldoni, her contacts with Melissa Nathan. She's not permitted to share this with any third party outside of a lawyer, like a court case or a criminal case. And she got Abel's phone that same day, handed it over to Sloan, who's Blake Lively's publicist, and Leslie calls Melissa Nathan and says, "You're going to get sued." All because she started the fire that set this whole thing in motion, because she refused to stand down and not talk to the Daily Mail. Because she saw them getting into, they had been like the clients that she didn't care about, and suddenly she saw them big in the media, and so suddenly she wanted to be like the hero, right? So they're suing her for breach of contract, and they're saying that under the terms of the agreement in exchange for a monthly fee, Jones Works agreed to provide strategic communications and public relationship services in a professional manner and in accordance with goals mutually established. She failed to render service in professional manners and in accordance with Wayfair's goal, and she breached the agreement. And it's that throughout Wayfair's engagement of Jones Work hereunder, the agreement further provided, and they share the confidentiality part of it. As alleged here and above, Jones Work egregiously breached the foregoing confidentiality provision by voluntarily and maliciously disclosing confidential information defined in the agreement to third parties, including without limitation Leslie Sohn, for the express purpose of harming the interests of Wayfair and Baldoni. The confidential information was not disclosed by Jones Works and Jones pursuant to subpoena or otherwise required by court of competent jurisdictions. Jones Work and Jones are liable for the subsequent disclosure of said confidential information by third parties because such third parties obtained that information as a result of their breach of the agreement. The foregoing breaches were incurable, and Wayfair was substantially performed the agreement or was excused from doing because of Jones' work and Jones' actions. They suffered damages, and then they're also suing for a second cause of action, which is breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, which says that they engaged in conduct and prevented Wayfair from receiving the benefits contemplated under the agreement, including by maliciously feeding its confidential information to hostile third parties for the specific purpose of harming Wayfair and Baldoni. If this doesn't tell you that this is with malice, I don't know what does. What kind of freaking PR agent, who by the way was in the middle of all of this when it was happening, like her lawsuit is insane. She acts like she wasn't party to these conversations, that she didn't know that the crisis PR team had been hired, that she hadn't seen the agreements. Like, she knew all of that existed. And then she's running over to Blake and Leslie after she's the one that started the fire and is like, "Hey guys, hey, I just started the fire, but I can be your hero. I can save you and let's destroy them all together." Because she's mad at Melissa, she's mad at Jennifer, she's mad at Wayfair, she's mad at Justine. And so it becomes like an enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I like that they flat out said that there was no subpoena and that she breached the contract. And so this was illegal. It was incurable. And this should tell you that, like, literally the lengths that Blake Lively went to try to frame Justin as a sexual predator, they were willing to take illegal steps. Do you remember when Blake said to Justin, "We work like the mob, we're like the mafia"? This is total mafia work. Like, the extortion, the threats, like, "I'm going to accuse you of something if you don't do this." That's totally mafia. And like this concept of like stripping people of their phones and believing that you can have access to confidential information when you have a freaking contract that says that you're not to violate it. I hope that they like just sue them into oblivion, as Brian Friedman says. So this was actually created by Brian and Mitchell Schuster and Kevin Fritz. So here's the thing. I'm happy to see this lawsuit. I truly hope that this uh, all gets sorted out, because that lawsuit helped me with explaining how everything created this madness. Shame on Stephanie Jones. No wonder that article was basically like, she plants a story. That was what that article said. She basically plants a story and then tries to fix the problem, right? So she ran to Daily Mail. She plants a story about Blake and Justin, and then she runs to Blake and is like, "I'm your hero," because she's lost at this point Chris Helmsworth and Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Can you imagine how desperate she might be for someone like Blake or Ryan or one of their friends? They're more important to her than Justin and and Wayfair. She wants the big dogs because she's losing all of her clients. This is such a sick and disgusting world, and I'm so done with it. And I feel so bad for Justin. And I'm also proud of Justin for stating in the lawsuit that it was a horrible decision to hire Blake Lively, because it was. So she'll have to respond to this lawsuit. And what are your thoughts about that? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.